Have you ever wondered how a person's perspective of sex can change throughout their lifespan? We interviewed different age groups from early childhood to late adulthood to understand a person's perspective of sexuality. What does sex mean to you?
Each of these developmental stages include what Bancroft referred to as the development of 3 specific strands of sexual development: gender identity, sexual response, and the ability to develop intimate relationships.
When you get married.
That's weird.
Well, people have babies sometimes.
I don't really know. I think it could be really casual, like people use it as a mechanism to obtain pleasure, but it could also be really intimate between 2 people.
I think sex is just a part of life, and then like when you do it with somebody that you care about, or just do it and not care. Like it depends on who you are as a person and how strong you are as a person.
It's a like delicate subject anyway, like a sensitive issue, like a big deal.
Think about sex as something intimate with another person that can involve your emotions, but also it can be the opposite and just be something that is animal-like or no emotions and no feelings, and it's just something casual, like shaking somebody's hand. I think thinking about sex, I think it's something natural though, something that's like eating or going to the bathroom.
Sex is more of a kind of a jump to the next level, in the sense that you've already got to know each other and you just want to connect on a much more intimate level.
It's an intimate thing. Just an adult do. It's not just between a man and a woman, it could be between girls, boys, boys, and girls. It's not just the traditional definition.
Think about sex in 2 ways. So on the one hand, there's sex as procreation. So this is, do you want to have a baby? This is for heterosexual couples who can have intercourse and you can make a baby. And then all other forms of sex or lovemaking, they're in this other category where it could be between same-sex people, between opposite-sex people, and it is about the emotional exchange and the self-transcendence that can happen in just a kiss.
I think it's a nice thing.
People typically develop perceptions of sexuality through learning experiences at school or with parents, peers, and the media.
I just know it from my brain. I don't know.
I heard about sex when I was in middle school. My sister taught me about sex.
I learned about it at school from my PE teachers. That was back in elementary. I was about 5 or 6 and I heard someone talk about it.
From like the people around me.
No one really taught me, but in middle school, like kids would talk about it. In my sophomore year of high school, we had a sex education class, but my teacher took it as a joke.
The first time I knew about it or like heard of it, I remember being from TV.
I learned about sex from my parents when I was young. They talked to me briefly, but more in school when I was in elementary. And then it kind of stopped from there until in high school they just told us to read a book and they just said, oh, read the chapter on sex, and that was pretty much it. But not that many people read the chapter. I didn't read the chapter.
In elementary school, they showed us a video on sex ed. Pretty sure I learned most of it through the internet and peers during the middle school age.
An older person. I guess I just looked up the term sex in the dictionary, and then it referred me to intercourse, and then that was my perception of what sex was. And I was exposed to porn when I was in 3rd grade.
HBO taught me about sex. The HBO Real Sex shows that would come on whenever we had free cable. They do HBO specials and you get 3 months of free cable. Well, that's how I learned about sex.
My best friend from junior high school.
Different stages of human sexuality can be identified by biological and behavioral components.
I think about sex is not good because someone might want to leave you and you might want to be still spending time with them. You're gross.
I don't want to do it, whatever it is, I don't know.
Once you do it, you can't take it back.
Never engage in sex until you're in an actual relationship that you care about.
Sometimes people view it as a bad thing, but it's really not.
In middle school, I thought it was weird. Then high school came, and I was like, oh, well, it's just a part of life. It's whatever.
I think it's quite a big deal. I mean, obviously there's lots of stuff going on, and I think it's very stressful for people. I'm sure that's like an added layer of stress, especially if it feels like a taboo subject, which it definitely does. I think that adds more anxiety to the situation than there needs to be. Now, I'd like to say I'm less anxious about it, hopefully. Yeah, I think it's much more normal, obviously, now.
I didn't really think much of it because I was more involved in school and I wasn't focused on sex, but until like the last years of high school, so I didn't really think in my adolescence, I didn't think that much about sex. I think sex is very taboo, and another thing that's very taboo is the influence of pornography in sex and how pornography distorts sex and everything that sex is. It's displayed a certain way in which it isn't, and right now I think about sex as something intimate with another person.
I don't want to say taboo, but something that's kind of private and just not really addressed. For me, it's a big deal, but others may see it as casual. And I mean, everybody our age nowadays kind of talks about sex like it's not something to be ashamed of. So I think it's normal.
I didn't want to have sex because I wanted to graduate with no kids, and I thought my mom was going to kill me if I got pregnant. So I was like, I'm not even going to do it. So now that I'm older, I see it differently. It's all in who you do it with. I don't think you should do it as like a hobby because it's an intimate thing.
Something that adults do. Feels good. Definitely widening perspective of sex. It's not just between a man and a woman. It could be between girls, boys, boys, and girls. It's not just the traditional definition.
There doesn't have to be, that emotional investment that you give to somebody is, to me, that's incredibly powerful and is included for me under this umbrella of sex, especially when you take away the procreation aspect of it. So there are these two different ways of thinking about it.
Because my parents never told me about it, it was something bad that I just never really looked for it like my friend did. I don't feel that it's wrong like I did when I was younger. I'm not inhibited like I used to be, but I'm not running around looking for it from anybody or anything. I have to be in a relationship to consider having sex. I think it's a nice thing, but as a child, it was just something you didn't do unless you were married or wanted kids. If I'm involved in a relationship, I like the intimacy of that relationship.
Sex, when you go on honeymoons, 2 girls can marry each other and 2 boys can marry each other. After college, after graduating.
That's how people make babies.
That's basically how people have babies.
Be safe and actually think about it first before you do it.
Do not do sex until you're at age 18 or above.
I don't really have advice.
Think about it before you do it, and do it with someone you care about, or if you do it with someone you don't care about, just know you're strong enough to handle it.
Be more open about it, and then like make it less of a deal.
I'll tell them to do research on contraceptives, to educate themselves about pregnancy and how the reproductive system works. Also, I'll suggest them to Google images or find images on sexually transmitted diseases in order for them to get in order for them to see the reality of what an STD is and how can it affect you and your life.
Use protection. Make sure the other person is like conscious and wants to do it with you. Avoid STDs at all costs. If you get one, it's not the end of the world. There is medication. Have fun. Talk through it. Make sure everybody's comfortable throughout the whole process.
Don't hold on until you get married. And when you do get married, at least a year or two before you guys to have sex. Yeah. Something that you do when you're an adult. That it feels good, but it's not okay until you're an adult.
Be careful about the sex as procreation side, because you can have lots of other sexes without being in this procreation space. And you really should think hard about, are you ready to have a child? If you're a same-sex couple, you only really have to deal with over here, because we can't make babies yet. But it's still a really important question to ask yourself. Are you ready to emotionally be involved with this person? It's a conversation that you should have, and it's something that you should really think about before you just give it away.
Take precautions. If the female is asking me, I would want to know, is it only because he wants to have sex, or do you really care about this person? Do you think it's going to be a lasting relationship, or is it just going to be a one-night relation or one-night stand? I would tell a male is that they better consider what may occur if the girl becomes pregnant, even with protection. That they'll have a lot of responsibility on their hands.
We hope this video can help adolescents, adults, parents, and educators develop an enlightened perspective of sexuality and become informed about the dynamic process of sexual development throughout the lifespan.